garden, be in nature. I trust you're well. I certainly am. Here in the garden today, I'll be planting out some magnolias. However, these are slightly different. These are the evergreen version of magnolias. They're known as the Magnolia grandiflora. I managed to purchase these in the sale, and it's because they look a little odd, broken limbs, but I've come to their rescue and I'm going to plant them in such a way to sort of create a multi-stemmed pot. Purchasing multi-stemmed trees can be quite costly. So what I've done here is I'm rescuing these and I'm arranging them to give the illusion or the appearance that they are multi-stemmed. So not only rescuing them, but also beautifying them. At least that's what I think. Look at the leaves. They have a glossy shine and the underneath has this bronze effect. And unlike most magnolias, this grandiflora is indeed a grand plant. It produces some beautiful, creamy, cupped flowers that the bees absolutely adore. I'm just going to pop it to the side and allow it to grow, and I will transplant them into a larger pot when that time arrives. But for now, other things to do in the garden. What an appropriate name for the dahlia. My love. I'm going to be planting some of these out in the garden. I had them many, many years ago, but they did not reflower for me, although they are perennials. And that is because the tubers are quite sensitive to cold, and the plants themselves will die back only really when the frost has arrived. So what I'm doing this time to preserve the tubers is plant them in these containers. That way I can get to lift them out once the first frost appears in the winter. So to give these tubers the best chance of survival, especially during the wetter months and in the winter, I'm going to plant them in some well-draining soil. I'm mixing by eye some of my compost and some gravel. I'm also placing them in these containers, having lined them first with some hessian, and that's just so that I can lift them back out in the winter time once the frost and the cold weather has arrived. Hopefully I'll be able to store them safely in a dry shed over the winter and then pop them back into the flower bed again in the spring. I will, however, give them a good soak for about 20 minutes, half an hour before actually planting them out. What next? Well, I have these peonies, which I purchased as bare root. That means that they come with no soil. These are the roots of the peony, and as you can see, they look rather tough and very woody. But once planted, they will start to grow. I'm trying to make the most of these roots by cutting them into different sections in the hope that I can create multiple plants. I'm just trying to be mindful as to where there is a growth happening, and I'm trying to make sure that wherever I cut, I ensure that there is an area for the plant to grow and that that area has sufficient root. So here it goes. So let me get ready to plant out the Chelone obliqua alba. A beautiful plant. You can see the new shoots growing already. I'm going to try and divide this also, but before I do that, I need to loosen some of these roots. This plant is clearly pot bound. Pot bound is when you buy a plant and you remove it from the container and the roots have been limited to the size of the container and are often tangled together, matted together and wind around in circles. I find that if I plant it as is, in other words, when it is root bound, that it may struggle. So actually, just gently teasing the roots away and allowing them to move in different directions, free of the container in which they were growing, I find that that does help the plant somewhat. It might seem a little rough and it may cause some slight damages to the roots, but I assure you that before long the plant will bounce back. I have a lot of comfrey growing in my garden, and absolutely it is welcome. However, in this space here where I'm planting out some new plants, I want the new plants to not have to compete with the comfrey, and so I am thinning some of the comfrey out in this space. Back to the peonies that you saw me cutting earlier on. I allowed them to soak for a while, and now it's time to plant them out. The peonies I plant directly into the soil. I don't need to put them in containers like the dahlias. The peonies are perennials also, and I find that despite the frost that we do get here in the UK, they will come back year after year. So there we have it. The dahlias are in containers, or really old crates, just to make it easier for me to lift them up in the winter. I'm spacing them out fairly well to allow them space to grow. They will form more tubers as the seasons progress. Thank you so much for being with me. Your company means so much. I'm grateful. I hope you're keeping well. I certainly am. The exercise has been good. More plants in the garden. More to look forward to. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in my next video.